then everything came crashing down for me. And then I had to rebuild my life with success on my own terms. And then that's where I got very, very clear on what it really matters to me. And today now I live a great life to where I do what drives me and I do it on my terms. And so you can have success and you can have a life that you actually love and enjoy.
Are you done people pleasing? Done comparing yourself to every woman on your Instagram feed? Done dating men who give you the bare minimum effort and somehow convincing yourself that it's enough? Done playing small so you can fit into spaces that were never built for you in the first place? Good. You are in exactly the right place. Welcome to Your Unapologetic Life, the podcast for women who are ready to stop settling and start showing up fully, confidently, and completely unapologetically in every area of their lives. I'm your host, Morgan Barkis, confidence coach for women, author, speaker, and exotic dance instructor with a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. I have built my confidence the hard way, speaking up for myself when it's scary, feeling sexy in my body when everything around me said I shouldn't, traveling alone, moving across the country by myself multiple times, dating with standards, knowing what I want and asking for it without apology. I have been in the mess and I have come out the other side, and now I coach women on how to do the same. This podcast is for the woman who is done waiting for permission, done waiting until she is skinnier, more polished, less complicated, or finally chosen by someone who keeps her guessing. She is smart, she is capable, and she is exhausted from trying to hold it all together while quietly falling apart inside. This is not a podcast about toxic positivity or 5 steps to a better morning routine. This is real talk about confidence, dating, body image, self-worth, and what it actually takes to become a woman who does not settle ever again. I'm glad you're here. If you're like me, you're listening at 1.5 speed while doing other things. So let's get into it. We're not here to talk about sex, Mel.
Talk about sex. I'm like, geez. I'm like, that's one. I don't know if I can handle that on top of all this other stuff. No.
All right. I love to talk about sex. And we are talking about success. So on your website, you said that you help women create success on their own terms. Tell me what that means to you.
Yes. So success on your own terms means to me that you create success in a way that fits you. So not only does success feel good, look good, and you actually enjoy it. And so often I feel like we feel like success is one thing, like, right? And really when it's success on your own terms, what does that mean to you specifically? Because success to one woman will be completely different than success to another woman. And so really having that clarity and understanding of what success means to you and why that's important to you, that's how then you create success on your own terms, and understanding that you actually have more power and control than you think you do.
Now, obviously, I think of success and I'm like, okay, I'm thinking money, you are successful, particularly in the American society. If you have a certain amount of money, it allows you a certain amount of freedom and happiness and comfort and all the things. And, having worked different jobs, success also means working and doing something for me that feels fulfilling and purpose driven. And that even is vague. So tell me about what you have noticed for yourself and then also other women. What is success? What are other people? Yeah. So if a woman is listening and she goes, oh, yep, that, now I know I'm successful, or that's the kind of success I want. How would she know that? So what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love this because I actually, I was talking about this last week because we live in a society and a culture of external like drivers, right? So when you brought up money, right? Everyone's like, hey, I want to make 6 figures, or I want to hit that next level. And yes, but money isn't why you do the things that you do. Money is the vehicle that will then allow you to do certain things, right? So I have this really great exercise, and I'm sure, I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's called the layers of why. And it's so important because money is money. And money's only going to motivate you for so long, right? Because I'm sure we've all been there. Like, right? Okay, we want to make six figures. Then then we're like, okay, I want to make more. But then, eventually one day you're going to sit there and go, okay, this is not, like you said, it's not fulfilling me. It's not giving me what I want. So why is money important to you? And so, for example, for me, money's important to me because that brings stability for me. That allows me, so I don't have to worry about paying bills. I don't have to worry about, if something breaks, I can, pay for it, all that. But okay, great. But why is that important? Well, having that stability is important to me because when I have that, I don't feel like me, myself, I have to feel like I'm stressed or I'm worried or constantly concerned about where's that next money going to come in. Well, what does that mean? And why is that important to me? Well, then when I have money, then I can travel and I can do the things that I want to do. I can, maybe if you have a family, then you're like, okay, now I can take my family on a vacation and we can do the things. And great. Well, why is that important? Like, what will that do for you? Well, in my case, that brings me that freedom. When I have money, and I'm able to travel and I have that financial security and I know that I can take care of myself, then that is ultimate freedom to me because I know that I can take care of myself and I know that I can travel and do the things and everything I want to do. So really, why? And that's why I always say success is what's that root of that why that you want. And so for me, it's freedom. For last week when I was talking to somebody, it was for her to be able to work around the hours when her children were in school so that she would be able to be present, at home when her children are at home. She could actually be present because she spent so many years working, and being at the dinner table with her family and her kids are talking and all that, but really she's working on the side. She's not even present with her family. So that's what success on your own terms means, is you got to get to that why. Why is that important? And it's not the external driver, it's the internal driver that makes the difference. Because every time that we are like, I want the next thing, I want the bigger house, and we all know super successful people, right? Who, if we look on the outside, they look like they have everything. But on the inside, they don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel like, they're like, there's no purpose to their life. They're just going through their day to day. And so all of that external doesn't make up for that internal driver. So when we get to that why and we understand what's the real internal driver. So for example, for that, that mom, she wants to be there for her family. She wants to be present with her kids. She doesn't want, she's like, they only have a few more years with me. I want to be able to be present there. I don't want to be working. So she may make a ton of money, but it's not the money. It's being able to be present with her kids. So that's why I always say, like, you have to get to the root cause, that inner driver, so it could be freedom. It could be, just anything that really helps you say, like you said, bring back that purpose and that fulfillment. Because a lot of people, and I was in that situation as well. If you looked at my life, I had a really awesome life. I climbed the corporate ladder. I was making money. I was traveling. I was doing all the things. And I mean, from the outside, it was like, okay, she's made it. But on the inside, I was exhausted. I was tired. I really wasn't. I mean, even though I was living a great life, was I really in my life? Was I really enjoying my life? Because there were so many times when all I wanted to do is just crawl up and just like hide away. Then everything came crashing down for me. And then I had to rebuild my life with success on my own terms. And then that's where I got very, very clear on what it really matters to me. And today now I live a great life to where I do what drives me and I do it on my terms. And so you can have success and you can have a life that you actually love and enjoy.
When you were making that money, give me a number. What was that good money?
Over 300,
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in terms of traveling, domestic, international, both?
Domestic travel, but I was on the road. I was on the road for, I think when I remember, like every year was a little bit different, but it was almost every week out of the year. And then I think I had like 3 to 5 weeks that I didn't travel a year.
Woo!
And
that's a lot.
That was 4 days a week, at least 4 days a week, every day. And again, I was closing the deals. I was doing the thing. I was doing it all. And I actually, and again too, I mean, when I was in it, I probably was enjoying it. Like I don't want to sit here and say like, oh, I was doing it, but I wasn't having fun. I was having fun doing it. But again, too, I had to get real with myself after I like crashed and burned. I had to get real of like, I can't keep living this life. And again, too, when I lost it all, because I lost my job, I lost my relationship, I lost my health suffered, all of it. And so when it all came crashing down, that was when I had to really say, what is important to me? Because really before that, I was chasing the external driver because I love the fact when somebody said, okay, Mel, you're making the money, you're doing the things, you're climbing the ladder, like you've done it, you're doing it. And everybody else was chasing behind me going, I want that, I want that. But
Sure.
again, it only lasts for so long, like, right? And eventually, I always say, eventually something happens that you start to wake up and you have some awareness of like, is this really what I want? Because, of course, yes, we all want the money. We all want good money, right? I mean, it's very different. Like when you're making that kind of money, there's really not much you can't do. Like, right? Like, I mean, if you want to, you can do it. But the thing is, am I really living my life? And was I really living my life? I'm going to say no.
No, because it sounds like you weren't that where I'm definitely more of a balanced person, and sometimes I struggle with it. But for me, it's like I'm not gonna give up sleep. So for me, it's like, well, I don't care what I have to finish. I'll finish at a different time. I'm going to bed. Um, or I feel like I need to be social. I need to go connect with people because I am spending way too much time alone, or whatever it is. So I'm pretty good at finding the balance. And so I can't say that I've ever crashed and burned. And I've also not necessarily had that external success like you're talking about. I never had a desire to climb any ladders. I did, so talk to the woman who is like, what did the crash and burn look like? The woman who's not like prioritizing sleep and working out. Cause I'm always like, I come first. Like, I don't care what's going on. I get my workout in. Work will happen when it happens. I'll get that in the morning. I'm going to bed. So I was just always very good at prioritizing myself, selfishly maybe, and but I've also never experienced this crash out that you described. So describe, like, did you have some signs before the crash and burn? Were there things that you were not listening to? Because I'm thinking of the woman who is like you, like, I'm on this path. I got these goals. I'm making good money. My kid's on the dance team, and I'm at every single practice and every single show. And I'm getting, making $350 a year. And, I'm just thinking of the woman who it feels good. And yet there's signs maybe she's not listening to, and maybe prevent the crash and burn. And then also, what did the crash and burn look like? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. No, I love that. And first of all, kudos to you because I mean, to have that balance and to be able to do that, because I think it's hard. And a lot of times I think it's hard for women because, right, women, we want our career, we have our family, and we're taking care of everything on all ends, right? So we have our hands in a lot of things. And so for me, like my driver, and this started way before an adult, like, right, but this started like when I was a child. This started where it was ingrained in me that I had to be the best at everything. I had to, and I was involved in so many things. I was the best, and if I wasn't number one, then I wasn't good enough. And I mean, this went on from
Wait, who
childhood.
gave you those messages, Mel? Where did that come from? What do you mean?
Oh, that's parents, people around me, but I mean, primarily my parents were like, it was like, and sometimes I think about that, like you're saying, like, where does this come from? And again, like my parents were doing it from a place of making me better, like, right, like they were coming from the place of, we want you to be the best that you can be, which all parents want you to do that, right? But it's also that whole level of when you start doing it and then you start noticing that, unless you are number one, unless you're at the top, then all of a sudden, you start hearing, well, you didn't try enough. You weren't good enough. Why did you let this person and so all those things start to, and again, as a kid, you're not thinking about those things. And as a parent, they're not thinking about the way that that's going to impact the child. Right. And so that just goes on from childhood to, as I went into high school, as I went into college, and then went into the workforce. Like that was the whole thing.
Mel, were you an only child?
I was not an only child. I was
Wait, so did the parents ride everybody's asses or just yours?
just mine. It was so fun. Um,
Wait, why? Why?
I mean, I think, and again, I think sometimes is right as parents, because right, I always look at, I'm like, parents aren't doing something, like they're doing what they think is right.
I was
And
gonna say
they would
parents are doing
see,
the best they can with
yeah,
whatever tools they have. Like that,
right.
yeah,
And
totally.
so
Yeah.
they saw something in me, and they saw like, and here's a little funny story, even about like school, for example. So school, I always had to get A's, right? And one year in the eighth grade, I got a B in one class. And it was the one and only time I ever got grounded. And like, it was the only time I got grounded. And I was just told about how, like, I was goofing off. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't doing all this stuff. And I was actually taking some really hard classes, like, right. And again, I was like, it's just a B. And I'm like, it'll be fine. I'll get it back up. Like, no big deal. And I remember my dad saying to me, he's like, yeah, but he goes, you know what? You can get an A. And he goes, you can do this. And he's like, you're just not applying yourself. So, until you get your grades up, then, you're grounded. And like I said, the one and only time I was ever grounded. And yes, again, I did get my grade back up to an A. But you realize, like, never again did I wasn't allowed to get anything other than an A. And the same thing carried through college as well, like nothing. And so that standard was set for me at a very young age. So what do I do when I go out into the workforce? Then I'm like, I have to be the best. I have to be the top. I have to do this, because if I'm not doing this, then I'm not good enough, or I'm not meeting my potential. Like, right. And so again, so you just carry on life like this. And this is what happens. So then, fast forward to, the crash and burn. I mean, that's the same thing. I mean, I was running on all cylinders, 150% in all aspects of my life. So when you're talking about working out, yes, no, I would work out, but I didn't just do one thing. I was doing 4 or 5 things, because I was trying to prove, and I was trying to be like, I can do all of this. Like, it was like, it's like a badge of honor. I'm like, I can do all of this. Plus I can work. I can be the badass at the job. I can, meet the sales goals, do all the things, all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden, literally one day, it came crashing down. And so when you talk about, like, were there signs before? Of course there were signs, but
Yeah, but what were they? I mean, what were your little
exhaust,
instincts? Like,
yeah, completely exhausted. Like, I wasn't sleeping at all, because my mind would never shut down. I mean, I would sleep for maybe an hour to 2 hours a night
that's it?
for like years.
I only slept 6.5 last night, and the little pain in my eyes, like, Morgan, you didn't get your 7.5 to 9.5. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you even function on that much sleep? I
Right.
don't even know how you function.
Tons of caffeine, right? Which of course is not good for you as well. And so I was like constantly drinking caffeine, all of that. Same thing.
Okay.
I'd work out, and then I'd be like, oh, I'd be exhausted after a workout. And I'm like, oh, well, I just need to do one more thing to get more energy. Like, right. It's that whole mindset. So literally it's that mindset of like, if I'm not getting the result I want with this, I just add something more in. So no sleeping, exhausted, putting on this whole little fake. Because same thing. I mean, people were giving me kudos all the time. They're like, how do you do this? How do you manage all this? And I would take it as like, I was great. Like, I was like, yeah, I can do this, but you can't do this. Right. So it was this whole mental game with me of like, I was justifying every single thing. And when somebody gave me kudos, I was like, yeah, you're right. I am different. I am better.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Wait, so Mel, you're like, whoo, I'm tired after that workout. So rather than going, I should maybe dial back, you actually added on. Is that what I'm hearing? So
Right.
rather than listening to yourself and your body and going, maybe I need to take things out, you added things?
I added because I thought more was better, right? Like, right? You think more is better. So I'm like, okay, that didn't work. So now I'll add this in. And so I wasn't listening to my body. I wasn't listening. I mean, again, too, like now I am very protective of my sleep, for example. And not until I started to understand like the importance of sleep, right? But I was just like, it is amazing. Same thing. Oh, if I'm getting 6.5, 7 hours of sleep versus a good 8 hours of sleep, I can tell the difference. But
Mhm.
because you're running on such autopilot, I was just, and the other thing is like, I would get up and go immediately. Like, that was the joke. I could get done more before 7 a.m. than most people could get done in a day,
Yeah.
and I mean, and again, too, this was something that I wore as like, look how great I am. Like, this was messed up in my head, like, right? Because I was
Yeah.
mentally thinking all of these things. I was proving to myself and to others that I was so good and I could handle all of this. And that was the whole thing is like, right? I could be the rock star at work. I could come home. I could work out. I could do all the things and I'm doing it great. But was I? No. I was literally running on fumes. And the other thing too is there are times when I would like sit at home and I'd be like, I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. But then I'd get somebody would say something to me and I'd be like, ping up. And I'd be like, oh, of course, I got to keep doing it because it goes back
Uh,
to that external validation, right? Because
mhm.
everybody around me thought I was a rock star. And so I was like, I couldn't let myself down or I couldn't let them down. Like there was no way. So I sacrificed, same thing. Like if they wanted something extra, if the company needed something extra, I was the one who raised my hand and said, okay, I'm going to do this. I would give up my personal stuff. I would give up vacations. I would have vacations planned and I would give
Oh
up
my God.
vacations because I was going to be, because I'm loyal, I'm dedicated. And so I know all of this sounds so extreme, but there's so many of us who are living exactly like this because all of these things, like when you add this all up, that's when you sit there and look at it and go, this is kind of fucked up. And so,
Well, and that and the confident, like I'm as a confidence coach. I'm like, wait a second, what is this need for outside validation and not having confidence in yourself and saying, no, I don't want that. I don't need that. I don't, that is not in alignment, like boundaries or whatever you want to call them. Like there was anything that made someone else like notice you or validate or it was like, oh good, I'll keep going then, rather
right,
than trusting yourself and confidently saying, no, that's not for me, that's too much, or I don't want to do that thing or whatever.
right. And I think that's that piece of like going back to childhood, right? Because right, people pleasing, having no boundaries, doing all that. And because I was rewarded when people would notice I did good things, like, right. And so again, this
Yeah.
goes back to, and that's
Wait, what if you messed up? So we had the example of not getting a good grade. Were there other examples, whether it were your parents or otherwise, relationships or whatever, where you didn't do the perfect thing, or you actually said how you felt instead of what you thought
oh, yeah.
someone wanted to? Were there other things in your life besides work where you were, I don't want to say sacrificing, it sounds a little dramatic, but you were like sacrificing your feelings and your boundaries? Were there other areas of your life that you were doing that?
Oh yeah, like even my relationships, like because I would always make excuses for work because work was always more important. Like I put work ahead of everything else. Same thing with
Mm,
myself, like even when I started to, back to the whole idea of like, were there signs? Like, yes, my health started to suffer, but I was just like, well, I'm just stressed. It's just like once I get through this project, it'll be fine. I'll take care of it then. Like, right. But then
yeah.
the other thing too is I was adding, so when you're talking about self-care, I mean, I actually do I was taking care of myself. But the
Yeah.
thing was, is I'm like, I would layer on the self care. And it's like a 90-minute massage wasn't going to undo years of, putting everything else before me. Same thing. Like, so I always joke about it because I do have a team of people who, like I do a lot of self care stuff, but not until I crashed and burned because same thing, they would be telling me, they're like, Mel, a 90-minute massage isn't going to fix this. This isn't going to fix this. And I'm like, oh, but I'll deal with it when I have a moment. And this is another key thing is we as women, we're like, I just need to get through this and then I'll deal with that. Well, guess
Sure.
what? That then never comes. So again,
Mhm.
so like like you're saying, like, at what point do you start to take care of yourself? And so for me, not until I lost it all, my job, which was my entire identity. I mean, when I lost my job, I was like, I was devastated. And again, too, so again, you're like, how? Like what? I thought I was so loyal. I thought I was so dedicated. And now all of a sudden, and again, I took it initially as like I did something wrong. which again wasn't me, right? Same thing,
Yeah.
my relationship. Finally, they were just like, you're never around. We never do it. Like, it was so far down on the totem pole that again, too, they're going, okay, this isn't important to you. And
Mhm.
then my health suffered, and I was literally in bed for almost 4 months, and I could barely get out of bed. And as I went to doctors and as I was going through this, my body was shutting down. My body was completely shutting down from the stress, the overwhelm, the exhaustion, the lack of sleep, like all of this stuff. I mean, my health was like everything was like screwed up. What was supposed to be up was down, what was down was up. And it was like, it was a complete mess. And I still even resisted it at that point. I still resisted it. And I was just like, okay, well, you just have to do more, Mel. That was the mentality. Like, right. I'm like, okay, you just have to do more. And again, nothing was happening. And that was when I finally had to sit and be like, okay, this isn't working. Like, this isn't working. So I'm like, what do I need to do? And then that's really when I started, researching and diving deeper into some of these alternative therapies and things that now I do and how I support women as well with this is, yeah, everything you said. Like, first, it starts with you. And that's why, again, we chase, and we live in a society where we chase these external, we chase all of that external validation, but that's only going to get you so far. And so you really have to understand you and understand what drives you, what connects you. And same thing, when I'm sitting here talking about how this all started as a child, those thought patterns, those beliefs, that the way I have been programmed to function and work, that all started in my childhood. So I always
Mhm.
laugh. Like, I'm like, we spend our adulthood undoing all the stuff that we learned in our childhood. Because again, it wasn't that all of a sudden one day at my job, I became this person. I was this
Mm.
person for a long time, and I didn't know
Yeah.
any different. And I just kept going with what I thought was right. And I kept going with what I thought I wanted. But I never got quiet and I never got still to understand, like, why do I want to do this? Like, what is important to me? And so I had to rebuild my life on all levels. And it wasn't like a quick fix, one and done, that kind of thing, but it took time. And I just remember it was about 2.5 months in when I had this moment of, like, I guess if you want to call it like realization, of where I said, okay, now I get it. Now I get it. And now I understand that I have an opportunity right now to change my life. But the only person who's going to change it is me. And then that's when I started moving full forward in all of the stuff that, in the ways that I support clients is just, understanding how I function, understanding what's important to me, undoing all of those, thoughts, beliefs, and patterns that have been running me, and then choosing something different. So again, going back to like you creating success on your terms, how it matters to you, and having that, but it starts with having clarity. Because, like, trust me, there were people along my way who said, Mel, you can't keep going on. Mel, you have to do this. And I'd be like, I'm good, I'm fine, because I wasn't in the place to listen to that. And so, yeah, I would love to have prevented my crash and burn. But for me, I don't know if I would have been in the space, because there were people around me who were telling me things, but I wasn't listening because, again, I was running on those patterns and those
Well,
beliefs.
and you're an extremist, Mel. I mean, someone who's as extreme as you are isn't going to take subtle signs. Like for
No,
you, it took the crash and burn. You had to be extracted, not to make this parallel. And I listened to this gentleman get interviewed. He was in a cult when he was younger, and then he had some kind of medical something or other, and he had to be in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And when he was away from that mindset, it was so extreme to be completely ripped away that he was like, wait, it was almost like he woke from a dream or something. So
yeah,
for you, you were running on this story and this programming for so long, and it was very extreme. It took something very extreme to pull you out of it. I mean, it wouldn't have been like, oh, I feel a little off. I should assess this. This is like you needed someone to be like, shh. um, so okay, so the crash and burn part, you're in the bed, you lost your partner, right?
mm-hmm.
And you don't have a job. Like, are you panicking? Like, I would have been like, okay, now I'm alone. I got no money coming in. Like, what is happening? Like, how do you rebuild after that? And then I want to get into the energy stuff, because you and I are not woo-woo people. So this energy work, I'm peaked because you have an energy assessment and you do energy work. So I'm like, tell me about this. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just jump in.
No, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, it was difficult. And even after I crashed, like I said, I resisted it so much. And that was the thing is it went from, that initial thought of, well, I just do more. Like, right. I just got to find a
Yeah.
way. I'm going to push through this. I'm going to make it happen. And then I would try a little bit of that and then I'd get kicked back down. And I was like, okay. And then finally, I just had that realization where I was like, okay, you have to try something different. You have to do something different because what has been working is not working anymore. So, of course, there was all these emotions that happened because again, I'm sitting here trying to figure out, and again, too, like with my health, I've never been down like that ever. Because I'm also one of those people who like, I don't get sick. I don't do this. Like, I don't have time for that. Like that's my mentality. I'm like, don't have time for that. And to be literally forced to sit there and to lie there and like, yeah, it was not pretty. So there was a lot that went through my head. There was a lot of like, I mean, there was negativity. I was pushing people away too, because again, too, my entire life imploded. But there was also this part of me where I put a lot of pressure on myself. And there was a lot of that negative story towards myself. And I'm like, see, if you would have just done, so I was trying to rationalize like all these things. Like if I would have done this at work, then I wouldn't have gotten, let go. If I would have done this in my relationship. So I put all that burden on me. Mm-hmm. Right. And so again, this is really about like peeling these layers back. So it was like like a reality check for me, and it wasn't pretty, and I still resisted it for a lot. And then, like I said, energy was really the big piece that started to shift things for me because I've been in that energy world a little bit. And like I said, I'm not woo-woo, but it is science, and we are energetic bodies. Like we're sitting here in physical bodies, but we are more energy than we are physical, and so we see this. And somebody had told me about this energy work, and they're like, I think you really need, because again, too, it goes back to all of these patterns. It goes back to all of this stuff that's been driving the way I've been functioning. And again, most of that stuff isn't current stuff. It's stuff that I've picked up and worked, that I've taken on, and I just like, this is who I am, right? And so I sought out a practitioner, and then I started to work with her. And then that is really when I started to see some shift and started to see this change. Because again, everything that leads up to us, as we sit here today, we've got a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. And so all of this works with your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind runs 95% of the show. So, and it's the quiet one, but it runs the show, like, right? And then we always want to consciously, cognitively sit here and figure out our life. And that's what I was doing, I was like, well, see, if that didn't work, you just do this. Like, right. I was trying to map it out consciously. And I was like, this isn't working anymore. So we started working with the subconscious mind, and we started really uncovering some of those layers. And again, a lot of the things that we carry around, just like how we're passed down DNA, this emotions, thoughts, patterns, beliefs, all of that can be passed down from your parents as well. And so again, all of that is, combined and together to how you show up, how you relate, how you respond, how all of that stuff. So we started peeling those away. And then, like I said, I would start to notice, it was almost like this little fogginess was, being lifted. And again, it wasn't nothing like dramatic one over the other. But I just remember a few months after working, all of a sudden I felt this weight lift off of me. And then some of the things, so again, those patterns, those reasons why I would always be driven to that external started to go away. And I was like, well, that's stupid. Like, what? And again, when I say that's stupid, that's me trying to rationalize what was happening. But what that was showing me is now I get to create a different opportunity. Now I get to create a different way. So again, do I want to live my life on autopilot, or do I want to be in control of my life? And again, we have to peel that stuff away so that we can show up the way we want. And from that, then I started to get really clear on like, what is important to me? Like, why is this important to me? So I did go back into my corporate world, but I went back as a completely different person. I got very clear on the type of company I wanted to work with. I got very clear about boundaries and like, I will not give this up. I will not do this. If you expect me to be accessible on the weekends, this is not the job for me. Like all of those things. But I got clear on what I wanted. And then there was this whole game of like, wait, will anyone want me? And this is the part that I love when I tell others when I'm working with them is like, again, that's a program, that we're telling ourselves that unless I make myself completely accessible, somebody's not going to, whether it's a relationship, job, right? It's not. And again, I'm like going, no, that's called clarity. And once you really understand and have clarity about what's important to you, why it's important to you, what does that look like for you? Because again, as we started the conversation, what does success look like? It looks different for all of us. And when I got super clear on that, and then I got really good about like, okay, I'm going to make myself a priority as well. And what does this work thing look like as I live my life and actually enjoy my life? Like, what does that look like? And then the right job came in. And then I was able to, come on board, work the way I wanted to work, still be successful. So it's like all of that stuff, like you can do all of that. But again, now you're more in quote unquote control, of your life because you have clarity and you have understanding of what's important to you. And so that's the part that I think is so awesome and amazing. But so often we just live on autopilot, auto drive of whatever we've known or what we've seen, or we're like, well, that person's doing that, so I have to do that because they have what I want. And it was a process. And I would say, it was about a year and a half when I finally had said to myself that I'm feeling like myself, like the person I want to be. And I was living my life the way I wanted to live it. And sure, and even today, sure, there's bumps in the road and sure, there's things and life hits you and does all this kind of stuff. But again, I always come back to me, like what's important to me? Why is this important to me? And when I always make decisions from that place, everything is so, you don't have to have the stress. You don't have to have the overwhelm. You're not trying to prove, it's more like you're being instead of proving. Because now I can just show up and I can be my person. And I'm still going to, sure, there's demands and I still have deadlines to meet. And I can do that, but I get to do it in the way that supports me versus me trying to fit something else.
And visually, for whatever reason, I have visual little circles. Like when we first started talking, your story, it's like the me circle was empty and it was all the outside that was colored in like that. And now the me was in color and the outside was empty. Like you didn't need it. It was nice to hear somebody compliments you or valid, like, but even you said it out loud. You said me, you kept saying me, where in the beginning of your story, it was, what everyone else's opinions were and expectations. And what a shift. Okay. So you and I met in a mastermind and I'm so glad we connected. And I love the red nails, the red lips, the vibe, the energy. And speaking of energy, tell me about this energy assessment. Because when I went to your website, I was like, energy assessment. And I'm still not clear on what energy work is. Like, what does that mean?
Yes. Well, so energy work is really, again, it's mastering your inner game. So again, okay. It is really peeling back those layers. Like what is driving you? So, right? Emotions, thoughts, beliefs, patterns, all of that inner stuff. So it's really hard to see. Like you don't see the inner workings, but like I always say, like think about in your day, do you ever go through your day and then all of a sudden like this little voice in your mind is like, why did you do that? Or like, it's like, it's that questioning aspect, or it's that negative thought. It's that negative belief, or you're like going, you let the negative impact you. That is an internal driver that is driving you, how you're showing up, how you're responding. So with that energy assessment is it looks at the different areas of your life. And it's really looking at like, how are you showing up? How are you responding? And you're looking at like, are you giving your energy away or are you in control of your energy? Because same thing, even if as simple as, right, you're driving down the highway, all of a sudden you hit traffic and, of course, bumper to bumper traffic. One person can be in the car and be like, oh, well, that's cool. I guess I have, some extra minutes to listen to my podcast. Or the other person could sit there and completely wig out, freak out, start, doing all the things, yelling at the people, like all this stuff. Well, that's that aspect of like, it's not normal to like trigger that. Like, right? Like that's a trigger. You're being triggered by that. No, nobody likes to sit in traffic. No. But we want to look at how are we relating that? How are we responding to that? And so again, every time we give our energy away, same thing. Every time I would like pat myself on the back because somebody's like, "Oh, Mel, hey, congrats. Mel's so dedicated, she gave up her vacation." But look what I was giving up. Like, right? So like I
Your energy.
was giving up my energy. I was telling myself I wasn't important, they were important. And the same thing with the traffic. I mean, if you sit there and you're yelling at the other car, first of all, they don't even hear you. They're going on their day. It doesn't matter. But all of a sudden you show up to your appointment, your meeting, and you're just like all frazzled. You're all, sitting here going, "Oh, you'll never believe what happened." And you're like all heightened and triggered like that. Well, who's that impacting? You. That other person went on with their day and they don't even know that they, made you react like that, right? And so that's where that assessment really helps you understand, like where are you in control of your energy and where are you taking, giving it away? Because again, too, once we start to understand that underneath of what's driving us, then we start to recreate new. Because again, same thing. Like if I look at my situation, this was ingrained in me. This process, this way of me living was for years. That was years in the making. And I would just apply it to the one situation, to the next situation, to the next situation. And so for me, I look at mine wasn't a matter of if this was going to happen. It was going to happen because at some point your body cannot do this. Your body's going to tap out and say, can't do this. And again, we're not looking at just the physical body because again, our emotions, our thoughts, the mental, like what's happening in our mind. Because again, too, like that's the same thing with energy. Like I always say, we create things twice, first in our mind and second in the physical. And if we're sitting here, we're saying like all that, we're letting all of that negative drive us. Well, how are we going to create something over here on our terms or how we want to do it? We're never going to feel like our life is never going to feel like our life. Our life is everybody else. And I loved what you said that, because same thing is before it was all about everybody else. And then afterwards it becomes about me. It becomes about you. And that's that piece of it is sometimes too, we feel like that is selfish. And I'm like, no, that's clarity and that's you understanding. Because the same thing is when you get and you understand energy and you understand how it's driving you, all of those other things don't have to take as much time. So same thing, that deadline is still there. Guess what? I do it in a completely different way. That's not as much pressure. That's not as much all of that because I'm focused and I know, and I'm coming from my energetic state. And so that's really the whole idea of, energy work, because it's not just how you show up, but it's also let's clear those drivers for you. And once you start to clear that, everything else in your life shifts and changes.
And don't you feel like attracts like? So when your energy is, when I first moved to South Florida and I'm from the Midwest, so everyone's like, "You're not from here, are you?" And I said, "Why?" And they're like, "'Cause you're way too nice. Like you're going to get eaten alive here." And I was like, yes, and like, there's bad people everywhere. There's energy vampires everywhere. And I just felt like if I'm a good person and I have good energy, I will attract good people. And I did. I have friends down there still, wonderful people that were in my life. And yeah, I met some folks that weren't so great. But again, those are everywhere. And I just felt like in this example, your energy, when you're in the chaotic energy and the stress energy and the wound way too tight energy, you just attract more of that until it literally took you out. And I'm guessing now you have a much different energy and you can calmly say yes or no, or that doesn't feel right for me right now. It's not a full body yes, it's not a full body no, it's a maybe. Like you can just be in the energy that feels good and you attract more of that. Is that true? Like, do you feel like the people and things you're attracting in your life have a very different vibe than before?
Oh, 100%. And that's really the basis of energy too, right? Like attracts like. And that's the whole thing is like, even if we think about like, right, we've all had a day where you wake up, maybe you stub your toe, then the next thing happens, and you have like this series of things, that happens to you. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this day is going to be horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess
Or
what?
you have a chuckle and you let it go and
Right.
you move on.
But
Yeah.
if you stay in that energy, and we've all probably done it, where you can look back at a day where you're like going, because all you keep saying is like, oh yeah, of course, same thing. Oh, this day is going to be horrible. Oh, of course, there's going to be traffic, of course. And so what do you attract? All of the things that you don't want. And again,
Yeah.
this is our mind. Our mind is driven by the negative. So again, this comes to that conscious awareness, understanding, having that clarity, understanding what's driving us. So when we can shift that and change that, then we show up differently. So exactly, like you said, you can sit there and have a chuckle about it and be like, oh, okay, great, but that right there, and this goes back to how do you create success on your terms? It is about your energy. It's about understanding this. Same thing, setting that intention. Like same thing. If you're, going into a meeting and you're like, maybe you're going to a meeting with people that you don't, you're like, oh my gosh, they're so demanding. They're going to ask this, they're going to do whatever. Well, is it a great meeting? Probably not. But if you go in and be like, okay, here's my intention. This is how I'm going to go in. I'm ready. I have my information, all this stuff. Then all of a sudden the meeting goes a different way. And this is that point, is you have to really start to understand how we can play with that and how we can change that, because we do have that control. And, same thing, like sometimes you'll hear people who like, they'll fly all the time and they're like, oh my gosh, like, 9 out of 10 flights, my flights are delayed. And that's all they talk about is how their flights are delayed. Flights are delayed. Well, that's what they're getting, because again, our mind will seek out whatever we're focused on. Our mind will look, because it is a decider. So it's like, oh, Morgan wants this. Okay, let's find this. Same thing, like if you get a brand new car, right? And all of a sudden you're like, it's a red Tesla. All of a sudden you're like, you see all these red Teslas. Before you had a red Tesla, they were still there, but you didn't notice them.
What do they call that? Bader-Meinhof?
Right.
The Bader-Meinhof
Yeah.
effect?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing of like attracts like. And that's the part where when you start to take back that control, you start to get really clear on what it is that you want, and you understand that, then that's how everything in your life starts to shift. That's how
I
you
feel like that.
that's so much easier. Yeah, no, that's how you do that. And whether it's success in life, success in a relationship with your family, any of that, like this is all the same thing across the board. And when you
That's what I was
start
going
to
to
change
say.
that, yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to say sometimes in relationships, people can be codependent and they let their energy change depending on other people's energy. And there have been times where I'm a bit of an empath. So, and I used to be in med device where I was OR based and I could feel the energy in the room, and it was like, it would affect my energy. And I had to consciously tell myself, Morgan, yes, don't be completely, you can't just bust in and be like, hey, everybody, what's going on? Because, I mean, they would think you were nuts and they would hate your guts. And I didn't let their energy affect my energy. So I didn't come in and try to reset theirs, and I didn't let it take mine down. And that can be happening in a work environment, in a relationship, because I think I used to definitely be like this. And there are people who are more codependent where they read someone else's energy and then they adjust to that. So if the other person's energy is bad, then it affects their energy. To, like you're saying, to really stand firm in your energy and have boundaries and feel confident and not minimize someone else's whatever they're going through or whatever, but and not be like jolly inappropriately, and to really be firm in your energy. I love that. Never really thought of it like that. So I appreciate you talking about the energy stuff, because I was like, oh, I'm getting it now.
Yeah.
Where you decide what your energy is going to be and stay in that and not let other people bring you down, affect you, because people can be literally energy vampires.
Yeah. And you bring up such a great point too, because really the only thing you can quote unquote control is you. So same thing, like if you're in a relationship and right, how many times we've all been there too. Like we've been in a relationship, we're like, we just wish he would do XYZ. Oh, if he would do XYZ. Or like I've heard it before too, where they're like, oh, well, if my wife would just do XYZ or whatever, wife, partner, all of
You
it.
do that thing. Yeah.
But the thing is guess what? Like you can't control what they do. So again, it goes back to that example. If you start shifting and changing how you show up, how you present, how you respond, how you talk, not saying it's going to happen, but more often than not, you will see a shift and change in them. So I always think about even like work, right? Because sometimes we work, we have that one or two people we're just like, you don't jive with, right? And you're just like, oh, I just don't want to have to deal with this person. And then every time you're going to interact with that person, you're just like, oh, this is going to be bad, horrible, whatever. Well, then it is that, right?
Yeah.
But if you put out there and say like, okay, like, you know what? I know that, this person has something to contribute, or, I'm going to be open to, learning, whatever it is, like, right. Then all of a sudden that relation shifts and change. And that's the same thing like in relationships. If you're struggling with something and you start changing you, because that's all you can control is you start changing and shifting your energy. Again, it goes back to that like attracts like. Like all of a sudden their energy is probably going to start to shift as well. Because as humans, we do want to be around people that are similar. You have groups of friends. Maybe there's one friend in that group who always brings down the energy or is always talking about negative things. And that's okay for them. But then you have an opportunity to shift that and change that, right? But instead of like, we've been part of that too, I'm sure, where all of a sudden then everyone starts going into that negative thing. And then just think about like, notice your energy when that happens. Like all of a sudden you're like, man, I was like all excited and cool and excited for this. And then poof, everything shifted for you. And that's the whole thing. Once you start to really become aware of your energy, and then you start really working with those internal patterns, that's when all of that starts to shift for you. And then, like I said, as success, that's how you create that on your own terms. That's how you create success and a life. Because so often too, for women, we feel like we can either have success or we can have a life. And I'm here to tell you, you can have both. I
love that. I love that. So saying that, if you were to speak out into the universe and one of the gals is listening and she's like, that's me. Like, who is the woman you work with? You're like, your ideal person, you're vibing with her. Who is she? And also, where can she find you? I mean, I'll put it in the show notes, but tell me where you would want like the best place to connect with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, my ideal client is a woman who, she has got it going on, like, right? And she is great. She knows success. She knows how to create that success. And she feels like something's missing. So corporate professional, entrepreneur, and wants like that next level, not that next level because she's not where she wants to be, because she knows there's more for her, that she's wanting to become her best self. And so can find me on the either Instagram, Facebook at Now in Zenergy, my website at melcunningham.com. And yeah, I would love to just have a conversation, see if it's a fit, but I'm so passionate about helping women actually create a life that they love, a life that they can have, that's successful and enjoy their life. Because I see so many women who are at that point. And, I always say it's a safe space too, because I get it. I've been there. And you know what? It's okay for us to sit here and say like, I can't do it all and I want to do it a different way.
And speaking of life, what is having a great life? What is your motto in life?
I always say live passionately. And really it's about, again, it goes back to that whole idea of what it is that you want. So if you're going to do something, do it passionately, have fun doing it. And, I would say that wasn't always my motto, but that's really what shifted for me is I need to put myself first and enjoy what I'm doing. Just enjoy what you're doing, live passionately, and then everything else works out.
Mel, here is to living passionately. I appreciate you being on here with me.
Thank you. It was so much fun. Great conversation.
If something in today's episode hit you in your heart, I want you to raise your hand right now because I am talking directly to you. Maybe you are dating and you have never really stopped to ask yourself what you actually want, how you want to feel, and what you absolutely will not tolerate anymore. Maybe you're in a relationship or marriage and you are still people-pleasing, still saying yes when you mean no, still making yourself smaller so everyone around you stays comfortable. Maybe you were taught to be a good girl, not cause waves, not take up too much space, and you are exhausted from it. Imagine waking up and knowing exactly who you are, wearing what you want, saying what you mean, letting other people's opinions of you be their problem, not yours. That is a skill, and it is exactly what we build together. My coaching is not a formal weekly call you have to wait for. It's me in your pocket, available via text and voice note in real time as life actually happens. Like your most honest best friend who also happens to have a master's degree and zero tolerance for you playing small. If you are ready for that, come find me. You can DM me on the Instagram, the link is in the show notes, or head to morganbarkis.com to get in touch. Until next time, stay unapologetic.